Rhea Gilkes is the chef of Fusion Rooftop in Barbados. It's a very zen-like rooftop restaurant looking out over whole town with some killer grilled piri-piri shrimp, tuna tartare with white soy and avocado, and sous vide tamarind and black curry pork with carrot and red lentil mash. And if you can't tell, I'm really sad to not be there right now because this is the time of year I would usually be there writing for a magazine called Menu International. She uses a lot of local ingredients like Christophine, snake beans, and jamun berries in her Asian, European, and Caribbean dishes and sauces. And the roots of her culinary schooling is French, which is maybe why we get along so well because she loves Montreal and she loves the restaurants here. When I interviewed her first in 2018 in Barbados for Menu International, we talked a lot about Tokay and some of our mutual favorite Montreal restaurants. We could also be friends because I'm from Newfoundland and she visited there as part of a group of Barbados chefs. And I think our island homes share a mutual love of rum and salt cod. So if you've never been to Barbados, there are less than 300,000 people living on the island. You can drive across it in about 3 hours. There are wild, windswept beaches on the east and really calm white sand beaches on the west. There are giant sea turtles and lots of mangoes and papayas and watermelon. There's also guava, soursop, and sapodillas. It's really tropical paradise. The island is a former British colony, now part of the Commonwealth of Nations, just like Canada, and it's divided into parishes. The official language is English, so you hear a lot of English and British accents on the island, but you'll also hear a lot of Bajan, which is an English Creole. And with that, you'll also hear Bajan referred to Bajan cuisine. So more spices, more flavors that you wouldn't see in their British colonial dishes that are still popular and that have been hybridized. While a lot of the rainforest was cut down for plantations, there's still a lot of interior land that's hot and humid and tropical year round. And I'm not alone in thinking that Barbados really is a tropical paradise because fresh food, local rum, beautiful beaches, it's easy to understand why tourism is the country's biggest industry, or at least it was. And that took over from cane sugar. While Bajans were already a little worried about Brexit potentially hurting the tourism industry, nobody saw COVID coming. And just like North America, Europe, and much of the world, the island shut down for a period and is only now reopening. That's why I invited Rhea on the podcast this week to tell us what it's been like in Barbados recently, what's happened since her restaurant closed and tourists disappeared, and what she thinks will happen next now that her restaurant is partially open again. Here's Rhea Gilkes. Hi, Rhea. How are you?
Hi, Amy. I'm really good. How are you?
Good. It's so nice to see you. I'm sorry I can't be there in person this year. Very unfortunate. But why don't you tell us where you are today?
So I'm at Edible Garden Cafe, which is in Spicestown. I'm up on the balcony. I'll give you a little peek at where I am. So
Oh,
this is
wow.
my view.
Wow. Gorgeous water.
It's summer, eh?
When is it not summer in Barbados?
Oh, well, it's proper summer. It's officially summer, I should say. I've had my birthday, so it's definitely summer now. It's
What'd you do for your
July.
birthday, by the way? I'm curious.
It was quiet, but it was nice.
Good.
It's probably quietest birthday I've had in a while.
Yeah, it must have been weird having a birthday during COVID. What was it? What were the restrictions like there? I guess let's start with what's been going on in Barbados, then we'll talk about drinks. So, what is it like? What was it like when your birthday happened? Like, what were you allowed to do?
Well, we had just been allowed to reopen restaurants for in-house dining, but capacity, of course, was restricted, and the temperature checks and those kind of controls were in effect. So I didn't even know how my birthday was gonna be like. I was just okay. Well, I guess I'll go to work. So I went to work, and the bosses surprised me with a birthday cake and stuff like that.
Oh,
So it was really nice. Usually I'm a big birthday person. I like to go extra. So for me it was quiet, but I still enjoyed it. It was nice. It was a nice night, and it was one of the first nights that people were really outside.
mm.
It's early in the relaxation of the restrictions. And yeah, 10th of
So
June. That was an interesting day, but I enjoyed it. It was cool.
How far did the restrictions go? I mean, you have beautiful beaches. I think the beaches were closed. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. As we were saying, the beaches were closed. It's such a weird concept considering
Yeah,
that
they're
something like a
public.
beach. Yeah,
How do you
exactly.
close a public
How do you
beach?
close the beach? But we were inside. It was 24-hour lockdown. After a while, they gave us maybe 2 or 3 hours in the morning where we could go to the beach because it's difficult living on the island and not being able to go to the beach. Like
Yeah.
we love going to the beach, so obviously that was weird. But I think the restrictions were necessary. I think most people dealt fairly well with having to, unless there's an unusual circumstance where perhaps at home or something wasn't the most comfortable place to be. But in general, I think most people dealt reasonably well with it.
Mm.
Um, we caught up on a lot of different things. I was making bread. People were doing challenges. I mean, people made the best of it,
Yeah.
as you always do in the Caribbean.
How many cases did you guys get? Do you know?
We ended off at around 80 something cases, 90 cases. I'm trying to
Okay.
remember, but maybe around 100 total.
Okay.
I can't remember the exact number right now, but we only had 7 deaths, and we're really grateful for that. And I'm really sad about the people who did pass away during that time. Um, and now we have no people in isolation.
Oh,
So
that's great.
technically, we might be COVID free at present.
Okay. And what about the immigration when tourism picking up now? Like, are people coming back? Do they have to quarantine when they arrive? What's the
Well,
deal?
we haven't actually opened airspace
Okay.
because a lot of airlines had said they would start back in July, but
Haven't.
people keep pushing that date back, so there's no real traffic through the airports.
Yeah.
Um, when there is traffic, there is supposed to be self quarantine. There's also supposed to be rapid testing a day or two before you travel. And if you get like a pass or a stamp or something that says you've been tested before you can travel, that kind of thing.
Right.
So there will be restrictions in place.
Yeah. It's just so funny to think of tropical paradise being separated from the rest of the world, and it's such a tourism destination. So I definitely want to talk more about that later, but we should definitely have a drink before we get into the nitty gritty details. So what are you
Ah,
drinking today?
I am drinking Summer Splash, so I'm gonna show you. Very pretty.
Blue or green?
It's blue, but I caramelized my orange and dropped it in, so it's now changing the color.
Of
Pretty
course you
sure
did.
I'm pretty sure the mixologist is like, what are you doing with my drink? Because this is a pre-bottled cocktail that I sell here at Edible Garden, done by a good friend of mine, Philip Antoine, known as Casanova, and his line of cocktails they're called Liquid Artistry. Um, it's like a summer spritzer for me because the cocktail comes in a bottle. It's a pretty blue drink, and I add a little soda water, and as you can see, my orange to it. So that's my summer sip right now.
Gorgeous. I love it. Are
What are
people
you
getting,
drinking?
so actually I need your help. So I made a mango puree and I put in some kaffir lime leaf and some ginger and some lime juice. And I wanted to do a rum float on top. Well, I was going to mix it in, but so I have two types of rum. And I know this is a hard call, but St. Nicholas Abbey 20-year age, which might be too aged to really make a cocktail out of, or Mount Gay XO.
Yeah, you can't float the 20-year-old. That would be
Sacrilege.
sacrilegious in like
Okay.
I'm sure that I'm sure
I just wanted to make you choose between two of Barbados's best known distilleries. So St.
yes,
Nicholas, you can only get the St. Nicholas Abbey rum in Barbados, and so I
yes,
went and I did the whole tour and saw the Lazy Boy and the whole plantation setup and Mount Gay. I love this rum. It's a great
yeah.
rum.
That's a good rum for mixing. I mean, you can't float the 20-year-old. That'd be like floating a really nice scotch or something.
I know, I know. Well, I'm glad you chose Mount Gay. If you had told me St. Nicholas because you just love St. Nicholas, I would have floated the St. Nicholas because I think it's more about enjoyment. But anyway, here we go. So cheers to
Cheers.
reopening to your birthday. I'm sorry I missed your birthday.
Aw. Don't worry, I miss Montreal. When you said you were going to Pullman's the other day,
Mm-hmm.
I was like extremely jealous. I was like, oh, you're going out?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you jealous. That was the first place that I went to when places reopened. And so the last time you came to Montreal when we went there, you know that that's my Sunday place because they have 50% off
Yeah.
bottles. And so friends that I often go with, they were like, okay, for our first place, let's go back. And we went at 4 o'clock right when they opened. So there was nobody there. And we saw the server that we always see there. And she was like, it's nice to see you again. And we were like, it's nice to see you again, despite the fact that you're in a full face shield. Which is a bit of a funny experience when, and she's showing us the wine list, and the wine list
And
is
you got out the little pencil and the little
the little
nibble
paper. Yeah,
paper.
exactly. Yeah, we had the olives with the confit lemon. It was really nice. But I don't know. It's just so funny for you to be jealous of here when you have such a beautiful island. You have so many beautiful ingredients there. And I was wondering about other restaurants. And in terms of supplies, are you, because you do a lot of local already, are people all of a sudden waking up there being like, oh my gosh, we need to grow more. We need to appreciate what we have here more?
There has been some appreciation of our local farmers. There has been talk about improvements in agriculture. We did depend on them when we shut down and the port stuff coming out of the ports were limited. Um, as a slow food chef, as actually the coordinator for Slow Food Chef Alliance, what we did during the shutdown was we created the soup drive, the slow soup drive, and we asked our farmers if they could donate, and we asked our chefs, some of like maybe what 30 of the chefs on the island have been volunteering on a rotating basis
Mm.
to make soups 3 times a week for some of the vulnerable people in our communities. We've been working very closely with community groups who distribute into the parishes themselves. And our local farmers really stepped up. Like they were giving out, they're bringing me every other day, every day, sometimes twice a day, just sacks of produce to put into the soup. They really we really appreciate as a community what our farmers are capable of, and they really stepped up during COVID for sure.
Oh, that's
So
amazing.
I've seen a lot of little gardens popping up at home. Uh, Lots of people buying far more things on the street because like supermarkets and stuff were heavily restricted. You had to social distance. So getting some produce from like a vendor or from a corner store became a lot more popular. So
Mm.
I think, yeah, our
So there.
community kind of coalesced around that.
Oh, and what about in terms of restaurants? Are people venturing out to restaurants now? Like, when did they reopen? What's going on?
So last month we had a very limited reopening and the curfew shifted so that there were few like, so that we could be outside up until 8 and then 10, and now it's lifted completely. So end of May we started opening back up. Um we're getting a lot of people coming out. It's not like droves, it's very sedate kind of reopening.
Mm.
But what we have seen develop on the island is a lot of delivery and
Oh yeah.
pickup, curbside pickup, which
Mm-hmm.
is not really something we did before. We don't really have a lot of delivery, but even some of my restaurant, which is a fine dining restaurant, we started delivery, and curbside pickup and that kind of thing. And yeah, people really respond to it. Like they really enjoy being able to take the food home,
Mm-hmm.
at least getting that service. So it's very interesting because delivery was not really a big thing on the island before.
And have you reduced the number of days you're open or you do delivery?
Mm, yeah, we're open 4 days now. We used to be open 6.
Okay.
And on the other 2 days when we're not open, we do delivery.
Oh, okay. And so, what are your best sellers for delivery now? I'm curious.
Well, we have a sushi bar. So one of our big sellers is sushi. And
Mm.
then we have our special Manchurian chicken, which is one of our signature dishes. And that's popular as well. And then of course our curries. Um, just so you know, our chefs make our curry paste and stuff in house.
Okay. And what kind of curry? So is it like a Caribbean style curry? How is that different from an Asian style curry, from an Indian style
Well,
curry?
it's a red Thai curry. We do use a lot of local produce, but we do source authentic ingredients like galangal and that kind of thing to make a red Thai curry paste.
Mm, okay. And so, yeah, you do a lot of fusion, hence rooftop fusion in your restaurant. But I know you can grow things like lemongrass and kaffir lime
Yes.
on the island, and you do work with more farms. I'm wondering what other restaurants are doing in terms of sourcing. Have things shifted more local for them, or are they still importing? And are you able to get the same imports that you got before?
There's been a little strain on the supply chain when it comes to imports.
Yeah.
Yes, some products were difficult to come by for a few weeks. It's always problematic with things like yogurt, dairy, that kind of thing, which
Right.
we don't necessarily produce here.
So you have
Yes,
great goat's milk cheese.
yes, we do. So Hatchmas Cheese is our local small producer. They produce a really good quality cheese, but they use more goat's milk than cow's milk. So things like yogurt and whatnot that needs to be sourced overseas, sometimes you get, backup in the supply chain and whatnot. But other than that, we've actually had decent supply because the demand has dropped as well.
Oh,
So
interesting. Hmm.
yeah, demand on certain things has dropped because people are cooking a lot at home.
Yeah.
So, on the one hand, supplies may have been strained, but on the other hand, demand is not so high that it puts us, in a difficult position when it comes to producing. So maybe
Yeah.
it balanced out.
Yeah. And are you feeling it? Is it weird there because there are so many fewer tourists than normal? Like, is it strange to not see that kind of crush of people everywhere?
Huh? Yes. Um, it's quieter on island.
Yeah.
I guess I never really realized how how many tourists there were until they weren't here anymore. Um, it is quieter, especially here in Spike Sound. Spike Sound's a really sleepy, kind of quaint, old-fashioned town, and because we're in the rural part of the island, it's smaller, of course, than like Bridgetown or a commercial center like Warren's, and of course, it's quiet. There's just less people who live on this side,
Yeah.
but it kind of was filled a little bit by having tourists walking up and down the streets, ducking in and out of stores and that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
And now when without them, we only see each other and we didn't really realize that there were only a few of us.
Maybe in that area too. Maybe because it's a more touristy area. Um, are you worried in your restaurant about people not coming back? Like you have a lot of space, you can do social distancing there, but maybe for smaller places it's trickier. But like economically, where tourism is so important there, are there a lot of fear for you personally?
For me personally, no. The
Good.
cafe we've reopened and we intend to write it out. We'll see how it goes, but we are changing our model to meet the demand,
Yeah,
to
with your
meet people where
takeout.
they are.
Yeah, that makes
Um,
sense.
I just believe in persevering. That's
Mm,
me. And we've actually picked up a few new clients since we've reopened. So I'm not complaining. We have, unfortunately, though, had a few restaurants close on island.
yeah.
Um, some places have either completely shut down or they've scaled back significantly
Hmm.
in order to like just exist. And I don't know if, and I'm not putting it out there, but I don't know if there was a second wave or something like that, if we wouldn't lose more places. So I'm
Yeah.
really hoping that that doesn't occur. We have like for example Waterfront Cafe, which is what maybe 4 decades, I believe that the PR blurb said. It's been in Bridgetown on the waterfront for 4 decades, and it closed in COVID, and they sold all of their equipment and stuff, so it's like not coming back.
Okay.
And that
Yeah.
was, it was a bit of a shock. So we've had some closures.
Yeah.
We have.
What about the really well-known places like the Tides? Are they going to be okay? Like that's one that I know some people even in Canada they recognize that name.
At present, it seems that they are what some of the larger fine dining restaurants have said is that they will reopen for season. So towards October, towards the end of the year, because this is generally a quiet time anyway.
Right.
I find it sad that people visit the Caribbean for their winter and not for our summer, because it's even more beautiful during summer actually. But I understand why. I'm just saying you're kind of missing the best part of the Caribbean. So our season is when you have generally winter time. Some of the bigger restaurants have said they will reopen at that point in time because, of course, hotels are still essentially closed,
Yeah.
other than maybe staycations for locals and that kind of thing. So that is a huge section of our tourism market. Airbnbs, hotels. At present, there's nothing going on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Is there relief from the government, like for these businesses?
yeah, the government has offered, what do you call it, social security? We call it NIS.
Yeah.
So National Insurance Scheme. They've been really supportive of workers. Not that everybody has received their checks, but a reasonable amount of people. But of course, you have to balance that with the fact that tourism is our largest industry, and therefore the most unemployed people, the largest possible number of people to be unemployed, unfortunately, would be if you close the tourism industry. So that
Yeah.
puts us in a difficult position. But
Yeah.
the government has been making strides in order to support them. So they would have extended the period for which you can receive unemployment. Um, there've been various community groups really working hard: the Salvation Army, the Red Cross, Lions Club. Various actual individuals have just come out, supermarkets, distributors. Everybody's just been trying to make sure that
Mm.
everybody else is okay during this period of time. Seen a lot more. And the funny thing is, it was so difficult to volunteer because you're in lockdown, you're in quarantine, but
Right.
people did what they had to. Even there was even a program to give out tablets to children who needed to now do school online.
Right.
So we tried to think of everything, and we tried to, make sure everybody was taken care of.
Oh, that's really nice. I I remember the last time that I was in Barbados, we went to a lime. How do you lime during social distancing? Maybe you can tell what liming is first, so people aren't like thinking of the fruit.
Liming is when you gather to do as little as possible.
Which is basically what
Um,
COVID is anyway, but you gather with other people.
you gather with other people. There's generally rum and snacks involved, but there's no point to it, and that's the point of it. It doesn't go anywhere. You're not partying. There's no dancing. You're just relaxing in a social atmosphere. Basically, we've taken the liming outside. So instead
Okay.
of being inside the shop like we were,
Uh-huh.
everybody's kind of distanced outside, but we still do it
Okay.
because that's who we are partially. So
But did things slow down when you couldn't like go to your favorite place to lime like before?
yeah, of course. Um, so we took it indoors. So there was dominoes and snacks and drinks in the house. So we just had to lime with each other
Right.
at home.
Which was basically 24-hour liming, I guess.
And you really can't improve on that, can you?
No, I just hope the rum supply didn't run out.
It was threatened momentarily because at one point in time, the government had prohibited the sale of alcohol in order to discourage us from liming, of course,
Right.
because as long as there's alcohol, we will lime. And so they did prohibit it. Luckily, we had laid-in supplies, so the liming at home did not stop, just, the outside. But
Right.
no, we do not allow our rum supply to be threatened. That is not
That's not a
not
joke.
acceptable.
That's not okay. Um,
You would need
so
to have the actual apocalypse, not just a pandemic. It would have to be the actual apocalypse
and
for
then
us
and only then would you
would we
stop
consider it.
liming. All right. And
Yeah.
what did you cook for your liming at home, or was it you, or was it your family? What'd you make?
So the first thing I did as soon as I got home for COVID was institute a roster for cooking, and they were like, "You're not the boss of us,
And you were
like
like, yes, I am.
this executive chef. Like we don't need a roster." And I was like, "Yes, you do." We need a roster, and I'm gonna write it. So I like called my mom and my sister and everybody. I was like, "Are you on the roster for Thursday? Because I have you down for Thursday." So we took turns cooking. We tried to get really inventive with each different day because honestly, it was our form of entertainment. So I did a lot of stuff from scratch. I finally got my sourdough starter to live. I made doubles. Oh, so my mom is gluten free. So often I like to stretch my imagination by just recreating everyday dishes but with gluten free alternatives so that she can have them. So doubles is like a Trinidadian street food and not a Barbadian street food, but I like it. So I did a sweet potato version for her, and we all had that.
With sweet
Um,
potato flour, it didn't fall apart. How'd you keep it together?
it didn't fall apart. I was just very gentle with the rolling because you fry it, so the oil will help keep it together. So it didn't
Yeah.
need a binding agent per se, but you just had to be very careful when you were rolling it out. And as soon as it rolled out, because it has yeast in it, so it was rising and everything, but you just had to be gentle with it. But it
Mm-hmm.
stayed together pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
If you go on my Instagram, you can see the finished results. I made pizza. I made a lot of stuff. There was a lot of
Yeah.
yeast involved in my life during
It's
that
so
period.
hot in Barbados. So how do you deal with the heat when you're keeping yeasts going? Does it just go crazy and then plop or?
I keep it in the fridge.
Oh, okay.
I keep it in the fridge basically in like the crisper drawer or something like that. Um, yes, you do have to, and this is why it took me so long to get it started though, because you have to account for ambient temperature and for the different wellies that we have here. So it was tricky, but I finally got past like day 3 into day 5, and I was like, yes, success.
So you're making doubles, you're making bread, you're making pizza. I really into dough. What was inspiring you and like what were you most proud of?
Um, just taking the opportunity to maybe try things that I didn't need to do for the restaurant that I was just doing because they were fun
Yeah.
and because I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the what is it called? Dalgona coffee. I did some trends off the internet. I just did things that amused me. I had some equipment, like I had a new pasta machine that I never really used. So I tried to make gluten free pasta for my mom. So I made gluten free lasagna, again using the sweet potato flour and stuff like that. And
Nice.
yeah, I was inspired by the fact that I could just do whatever I felt like and didn't have to make it a acceptable recipe for
Yeah.
selling to somebody else.
And plating. I know you do beautiful presentations, but you were like, this will taste good. It doesn't matter if it's ugly. Or were you always like doing it for the gram, so it had to be beautiful?
For the gram, of course. Everybody's inside and locked on to the gram, so everything has to be gram worthy, of course.
Got it. Okay. That I think that's the difference between you and me. I'm like, if it tastes delicious, I'm good, and I don't post gorgeous food pics
They
online.
won't believe you. They won't
Uh,
believe you if it doesn't look pretty.
it's true. It's true. um, so I talked a little bit about jamun berries in the intro. What are some of the cool flavors that you do get to play with from Barbados?
So we have a lot of fruit which is not really commercialized. You just kind of pick it or you get it from guys on the street. I don't know how many tourists have actually gotten an opportunity to taste them, but they're dunked. Well,
All
we,
of
we made
these.
sure that
Yeah.
you were sorted all the way around, but there's something called dunks which grow on like a really thorny shrub. Sometimes they're really awesome, sometimes they're not. Depends on how green they are. Um, we have akis, again, similar to lychee. I think is the closest thing
Yeah.
that,
I think they're
yeah,
also called guinep because they're not like
yeah,
ackee, like salt cod and ackee, like you think of.
no, exactly. They're also called guinea, yes.
Yeah, and you
Um,
peel them and they taste like lychee and they have a pit, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. We also have cashews. We have ports. Again, these things grow wild. Cashews are like there are cashew nuts. There's a little nut at the end. But what people don't realize is there's also a very pretty fruit. It's yellow. Sometimes it's red. Very peculiar flavor, but delicious because the cashew grows outside of the fruit. So it's not a inside. It's separate and outside the nut itself.
Yeah, that's why
But
it's
there's
not
a
called
fruit.
a nut, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's attached to a fleshy, very sweet, very acidic fruit
Hmm.
that I personally enjoy. It makes your mouth pucker.
And you just eat it raw, or what do you do with it?
Yeah, I just eat it raw.
Okay.
So yeah, of course, every variety of mango on earth is found here, like every single one. I had a sugarcane season, so it's like chewing on the good stuff.
Oh, that's
So
so
yeah, there's a
good.
lot of flavors here, a lot of colors that you won't find in Canada unless,
Mm.
I bring them up.
Yeah, exactly. I miss all of those. And a lot of those show up on plates in restaurants, and a lot of them don't. What are some of your favorites? What did you rush back to once it reopened?
Hmm. Well, I definitely went to 111 straight off the bat to have because it's on the beach and it's right here in Spitestone, just a little further along. And I wanted to get my dip in and have a sit, so I definitely went back there. I've not been to Salt as yet, but I will be. Um, let's see where else. I've not been able to go out as much as I would like, simply because we're so busy getting the cafe and the restaurant ready. But this month, I'm gonna be out. So in July for summer, even though there's no crop over,
Oh yeah. Oh, that's so sad. Because that's a whole series of parties, just day after day of huge parties, right?
like 2 months of solid partying
Yeah.
that we're not gonna enjoy this year.
And those musicians too, all the live bands and singers and everything.
Yeah, we're gonna have we should have started this week virtual crop over where you'll see some of what crop over is about on online platforms,
Right.
but it's really not the same, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But this is just this year. We believe that it'll be back next year, and it's just a small interruption. Um, we can live without crop over if it's for everybody's health and safety. So
Yeah.
we will make that sacrifice.
Wow.
No costumes on the road this year.
Very, very isolated. Everybody's just walking 2 meters apart in their costumes by their house or something. You'll have to have a crop over at home. You can put your mom on the roster.
I will. It's true. And we're gonna actually, during COVID, what people did was started publishing costume designs with
Mm.
masks incorporated because, of course, if there had been a crop over, that's exactly how we would have done it. You'd have practically nothing on, some sparkles, but your mask and your face shield. So that's how it would have been. So for imaginary crop over for 2020, we have a bunch of costumes online with masks incorporated. So I'm probably gonna make my mom make me one. It's
Yeah,
true.
it's probably very inexpensive because it's not a lot of material except for the sparkles. A lot of
Exactly.
embroidering. Just for people who don't know, is crop over like carnival or is it very different? Yeah.
Uh yes, it is a lot like carnival. Of course, our music, the tempo of it is a lot different than Trinidad, so it's not exactly the same. Of course, our social habits are slightly different. Like our lime is a little different to a Trini lime.
How is
The
it
food that
different?
well, the food that they'll serve is different. They have like corn soup at all their limes. They have doubles again on the corner. Well, if you go to a Bajan lime, you probably get like barbecued pork or and fried chicken and chips, fish cakes, that kind of thing. So there are differences, but at the core of it, yeah, there's a lot of similarities too.
Macaroni pie. Do both places do macaroni pies? Or is that just
You know,
Barbados?
they make macaroni pie, but they're not as devoted to it as we are.
I believe you. I'm not sure about the gustatory differences between them, but I believe you that you're more devoted.
Yes, yes,
Okay, so do you want to play a little lightning round?
sure.
Okay, so I know some of your food preferences, but not all of them. So I'm really curious to know what's your ultimate comfort food.
Ooh, that I love food so much that I genuinely find it difficult to just pick something. It literally depends on my mood. But I will say that I like soups.
But not corn
Yeah,
soup.
not corn soup specifically, but I like soups like a nice breadfruit soup with a little chicken and a dumpling in it, or cow heel soup. Like I really like soups, even if it in whatever form, like a pho, it doesn't matter. For some reason, I'm really fond of hot liquids.
What was the other soup you said? The second
Like
soup?
like a pho or chicken soup. It doesn't matter if it's like an
Okay.
Asian soup or if it's a thick Barbadian, like hearty, like chicken soup, like cow heel with like barley in it and peas and what we call ground provisions, which is instead of English potatoes, sweet potatoes, eddos, yams, that kind of thing. It
Yes.
really doesn't matter what form the soup is in. I really like soup.
That's fair. Do you prefer sweet or salty?
Sweet.
Anything in particular?
Anything with chocolate.
Mm. What were you cooking when your restaurant was closed? So you were at home, you were doing a lot of bread. Yeah, I guess we covered that a little bit. What have you been cooking lately now that your place is reopened?
We have been doing healthy versions of stuff. So I've been substituting brown rice into things. I've been using barley instead of other starches, quinoa. So we've been looking because one of the things once we were inside was exercise and diets and calorie counting.
Right.
It's not the fun part of being inside, but after a few weeks of indulgence,
Yeah.
the whole family got on the scale and we kind of looked at each other and thought, so
Yes.
yeah, I've been back on the healthy kick. Calories, small portions, green shakes, the green goddess, low spirulina. Like we've been trying to cut back.
Okay. Is breakfast your favorite meal of the day, or what's your favorite meal?
Dinner for
Dinner.
sure.
What was the best meal of your life?
This is supposed to be the lightning round.
I know it's a really bad idea of a lightning round. You're supposed to be like that time at X, and then I'll want to ask you a million other questions, and I'll hold those questions.
At present, I have to say Tani Etoile.
Oh, in Quebec City, right? I remember.
18 courses. It was awesome.
And that was last year, right? Can you imagine that was just
I
last year?
know.
I
I
hope
know.
that.
I was like, but to come back.
Yeah, yeah, Tenière Trois. Yeah, if anybody doesn't know that place, it was the reinvention of a previous restaurant in the old port of Quebec City, and yeah, they're doing this incredible chef's tasting menu there, like a small intimate gathering. I hope that they do really well when this is open. I think they have a restaurant group behind them, so I think they'll be okay. I think. Um, okay, so favorite Montreal restaurants then? I know you did a little traveling.
Ooh,
You
favorite
usually
March.
come up because you usually come up once a year, right?
I usually come up once a year. I love like the whole Tokay Brasserie tea line because they have a Bajan chef too. Hi, Andre. Um, and the food is really. I was so impressed when I went there. That's a fun place to go.
Mm.
Other places that I really like. There's a dumpling place just up from Brasserie Tea. I can't remember the name. It's really simple, but the dumplings are just like they're just awesome.
Oh, in Chinatown or
on
on
on the street up from Bratti. Just if you're looking up towards St. Catherine's, it's on the left, I think.
oh gosh, I'm not gonna figure that one out. I'm not sure.
No, that's the full place. You know what? I spent too much time in Montreal. It is in Chinatown. When you come in at first, it's like three places down. That dumpling place, yes.
On the left when you're walking like down the hill?
On the right when you're walking down the hill. I always recognize it because there's an ATM right inside the door when you come in. I think it's
Okay.
rated like third best in the city. This is how I remember it.
Okay. I'll
Yeah.
I'll see what I can find. I'll put up some and be like, maybe it's this one. Maybe it's this one. Um, so just to get a little bit of your background, you worked in a lodge in Ontario many years ago, doing what
uh,
exactly?
Taboo Resort
Okay.
and golf. Did it have golf too? But Taboo Resort is out in Muskoka. It used to be the Sands, um, and I think they're famous because they have a Mike Weir golf course or
Okay.
something like that.
Was that your
But
first stage? Your first internship outside of Barbados?
that was my first visit to Canada. They actually were employing Barbadians at the time. They brought up about 60 Barbadian staff because they had transitioned from the Sands, which was kind of, a summer lodge with college kids staffing it, and they had turned it into a full-on resort, and so they didn't have enough staff. So
Okay.
when I was about 18, I came up and worked there for 6 months. I
And
saw my
then,
first bear.
oh,
I was scared until I saw my first moose,
and then you were more scared because of the moose,
and
and
then
you
I
weren't.
was more scared.
I can't imagine you, little Barbados girl in big Muskoka woods, being like, "What are these animals?"
And the turkeys are so aggressive. Like the whole situation was just, I was just, they look so cute in the little drawing books for the children's book. Nobody ever tells you that they're like 3 times your size and slightly aggressive. So,
Well,
but it
in
was beautiful.
Newfoundland, yeah, and in Newfoundland, you don't fight with moose either. That's what we learned growing up. What brought
Mhm.
you to Newfoundland again? You were part of a delegation again?
There was a TV show. It's called Rory's Roadshow,
Oh, right.
and he was matching chefs from Newfoundland with chefs from Barbados. So we did a series of television shows where they came here and shot in our kitchens. And then it's like an exchange. And then we went there and shot some recipes in their kitchens. And we were really highlighting what was unique about our own cuisine. And it's also where we learned about the deep relationship between the two islands. So they have rum and they have calypso. And apparently we were trading partners back in the day when it came to saltfish, molasses, and rum. So we go way back,
Yep, that's
and
true.
that was what the show was about partially. So it was really awesome.
And you got screeched in, I imagine.
I did. I have my paperwork. I'm an honorary Newfoundlander. I'm very proud.
Do you remember what you have to say when you get screeched in?
I remember kissing the fish.
That's the most important part. Nobody remembers what you're supposed to say because you're not supposed to remember. You're supposed to have drank too much rum by then while you're waiting, and they're always late.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what is it called again? The rum.
Screech.
We were drinking the screech.
Yeah.
That's it.
I'm glad you had a good time. When do you think you're going to get back to Canada at this rate? Next year?
I I really really want to visit before the end of the year, but flights are just not
Yeah.
shaping up, and I don't know if it's gonna be possible.
And then
Fingers crossed.
quarantine. Yeah, yeah,
I was
exactly.
I was gonna come in September essentially.
Yeah.
No, July. I wanted to come in July. That's off the table. Possibly October if there's any wiggle room at all.
Yeah.
But if not, it's fine. Y'all see me next year.
Definitely will. We'll definitely stay in touch. We talked a little bit about Slow Food Barbados and the Chef Alliance, and what you've been up to there. I know you're very active with that. How many restaurants are involved in the Chef Alliance right now?
At present, we have maybe 30, 35 chefs, which is a mixture of restaurants, caterers, private chefs, anybody who believes that we should buy local, eat seasonally, who's willing to promote that on their menus, who's willing to come out and support the various projects. Um, that's a Chef Alliance chef.
Okay. And I just have one last question for you. And our lightning round became not a lightning round. It just turned into questions and chatting about rum, which is usually what happens. I sometimes ask people about their desert island meal, but as you live on very much not a desert, on a very much beautiful island, I'm wondering what your last Barbados meal would be. It could be like an appetizer, a main dish, and a dessert. And it could be traditional, or it could be specific restaurant meals or items that you really like from your place or from other restaurants.
Okay, so we're gonna keep it to 3 courses
Uh huh.
because I feel like that's the least 3 to 5. I feel like that's the
Yeah.
least I could do if it's my last meal. Like, I don't want to go overboard, but so I'm gonna start with my signature tuna tartare, which is full of island flavors. You have a little cilantro, you have a little onion, maybe some pepper. You can choose, you can change the type of pepper, but that's my signature dish. It goes with avocado, always, and I would want to start with that. I'd also want to have dumplings because, as I've said, I just love dumplings. I do. So that could be my second course. I'd have a soup. So those are my top three. I want to have a little. I have to go off island and say I would have a little maybe Wagyu or Kobe with some organic greens, um, like a zesty mango sauce
Ooh.
from.
How would you cook the wangu? And
I
sorry,
would
what kind
barely
of
cook
mango?
it. I would
Yeah.
barely. I would marinate it just very simply. Um, Very island flavors so that it's zingy on the outside and almost raw in the middle
What are
for
island
sure.
flavors?
So mango, fresh mango, peppers, Scotch bonnet peppers, a little lime juice, a little coconut oil, for example, to let the marinade sit. Those are the kind of flavors I'd want on my Wagyu with some fresh, like organic greens from Yam House or one of the farmers here. You can see it on the little plate with the micros and everything. Uh, yeah, for sure. I think for my second to last course, I know,
It's
some
your last
Caribbean.
dinner. It's okay. It's okay.
I apologize that my meal is now, a tasting menu, but some Caribbean spiny lobster for sure.
What's the
Yeah.
difference between spiny lobster and Atlantic lobster?
Well, it's prettier.
Or uglier, depending on who you're talking to. But
It's prettier. It's a beautiful red color. It's like banded with different colors, and it's spiky. That's why it's called spiny lobster. So it's already kind of pretty and red in the water before you cook it. Um, and it's tasty. It's really flavorful. We don't get them as big, but you can get really big ones. And if the flesh is, I think maybe it's slightly firmer,
okay.
a little bit, just a little
Uh-huh.
bit. And you want to pull, like, you want it on the half shell. You want to keep, ooh, you want some garlic butter on that. You know, you do. Mhm.
You do. Yeah.
You do. Yeah. You don't want to make it complicated, but you want to enjoy it for sure. And in my final course, instead of going for chocolate in a dessert form, I'm going to tell you what my grandma used to make for me. She used to make me pure cocoa.
Hmm.
So raw cocoa beans grated, and then you whip it in like hot water, and you make something called flour drops, which are little flour dumplings, and they help absorb some of the cocoa fat off the top of your cocoa tea. And you put like cinnamon sticks and nutmeg and stuff in it, and a little sugar.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's my grandma used to make that for me when I was younger. And so for my final dish, that would be it.
That sounds wonderful. And you can have that even when it's so hot outside.
Yeah, I I had cocoa this morning. I did. Uh, it's always hot outside, so it doesn't matter to it doesn't matter to us.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's great. Um, Thank you so much, Rhea. I really, really appreciate your time and good luck with reopening. And I hope that everything goes well for your restaurant.
Yeah, thank you for having me. To my brothers and sisters in Montreal, know that I'm rooting for you. I am just praying that all my favorite restaurants are still there when I get there. I'm looking forward to coming back. You know, I love you. I love visiting. The chefs there are awesome. They're welcoming. Um, as you know, when we go out there, they're willing to share recipes. They're always willing to have you come back and maybe stage at their restaurants, learn some new techniques. So Montreal has a special place in my heart. So I really hope that when I get there, you're all there and you're all well.
Mm. Thanks for listening to the Sanka Set podcast. If you weren't watching the video version of the podcast, but you want to see those beautiful Barbados beaches, check out the iTunes or YouTube versions of this podcast. You can subscribe to the audio version on Google Podcasts. You can follow on Spotify, and you can find us on Stitcher. You can also stream any episode on my blog, multiculturosity.com. And for all the places Rhea and I mentioned, check out the show notes wherever you got this podcast. And I hope you enjoyed the views, and that you're as eager to get back to Barbados or get to Barbados and to Rhea's restaurant as I am once it's safe to do so. Until next week, sip something delicious, alcoholic or not, and enjoy some sunshine wherever you are.